Yo, what's good, guys? We are finally here on MLB The Show 25 officially. In today's video, I want to go over some of the starter players that I think you guys should be prioritizing getting on your team. Obviously, if you're doing the live series, if you're trying to get Beltron done, doesn't necessarily apply to you. But if you just want to get on the game, get into a mode with a relatively decent team early on, I'm going to give you some players that are either A, relatively cheap, or B, you can grind for relatively quickly. So real quick before we get into it, I would urge you guys to like and subscribe if you have not already. Start of a new game cycle. We're going to be running it up all year, so hopefully you guys enjoy. So a lot of these super budget cards will be found in Team Affinity, and there's some pretty solid ones. The Astros, for instance, have the Silver Jordan, which is statted insanely well for a silver. You can tell no speed, no defense, but as just a pure DH, somebody that mashes. For a silver card, this is pretty much as good as you're going to get. So I really like him. Angels have a really solid one. It's Mike Trout. Can't go wrong with that swing. Yeah, he is pretty bad in the field, but in my experience using them so far, the speed kind of makes up for the battery action. And then against lefties, yeah, he's not great, but it still has that Mike Trout swing. So he still kind of plays up a little bit. But against righties, he's just an absolute tank. Like, you can platoon this guy with some of the better cards in the mode right now if you really want to. So I like him. I haven't really got into any of these gold Team Affinities. I'm sure there's some really solid ones, but they require a little more effort, a little more concentrated grinding, more towards that team. So let's see, who else is solid? Red Sox have Joe Kelly, absolute stud, should be in everybody's bullpen at the start of the game. No outlier four seam, just an outlier sinker, so not quite as good. But still, you look at this card, super high hits, has outlier, which is something that's exceedingly rare to find at this point in the game. Absolutely love that card. And hopefully I'm not missing any. The Nats is all right. It's Brian Dozier. Second base is a pretty weak spot. I don't love his swing. He just does a little too much for me personally. But stats-wise, you can't really argue with a card like that. And then I think the last card I kind of want to go over is this Jason Giambi. Because if you just want a power-hitting first baseman, it's him and Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso is going to run you like 2K on the market. Might as well just go get Giambi and, you know, have really good hitting quirks as well, breaking ball and dead red on a silver card. And Giambi always kind of tortures me in the past. Nolan Jones always has a good swing also. So I'm hoping I didn't miss any, but I think we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off and kind of show the squad. If you're on a budget, I don't think you can go wrong with this squad. Pete Crow Armstrong, not the greatest, but Mike Trout doesn't have a secondary. Aaron Judge, you get this card by doing the tutorial diamond quest, which is the new mode in the game. The tutorial is pretty straightforward. You almost can't fail it. So he's pretty solid there. Anthony Santander, can't really ask for more out of a first baseman at this point in the game. As long as you're not playing on Hall of Fame, this card's an absolute monster. 93, 94 power, switch hitter with one of the best swings every single year. And he has breaking ball this year. So he's a stud. Dozier, we already went over. Carlos Correa, for my money so far, one of the best swings in the game. You can see these are just Diamond Quest games against CPU. He's been absolutely raking, even with the low power. Colson Montgomery, those of you that know from last year, he had the spring breakout card, I want to say. A lot of people ran that card into the ground. You can see his wheels kind of glitched here. It's not showing his stats correctly for whatever reason, but 59 contact right, 67 left, 96 power right, 85 power left. So he's an absolute stud. We have the Jordana already showed. Cal Raleigh, not one of my favorite guys in game, not like a super awesome swing. And honestly, the contact is really bad to where if you're playing on anything over All-Star, he's probably going to hurt you more than he's going to help you. But he's still a switch hitting catcher with insane power at this point in the game, which is all you really need. And then I got some bench options. This Ellie De La Cruz is from the starter program. He's just here because if you need a pinch runner, you're not going to find a better one than him. He is 6'5", 99 speed, 99 stealing. It's just a pinch runner. He could be on your bench for the rest of the year. Juan Soto is the tier under that Aaron Judge. If you get one, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the other. Or if you get the high one, you're almost guaranteed to get the lower one, I believe. So he is also there. Doesn't have the craziest stats, but at the end of the day, it's Juan Soto. He still has insane quirks. So he definitely plays. Seiya Suzuki, a super well-balanced, well-rounded card here. 86 contact right, 85 contact left. Decent enough power right. Little low against lefties, but he's also not a complete defensive liability in the field. As far as just well-rounded cards at this point, it's going to be hard for you to find a card better than the Seiya Suzuki at an 82 overall. And then Christian Walker's worth a shout out because he just looks very solid, and I always love his swing in game. But we got some other options here. Brent Rooker, worth a shout as just a DH. If you want somebody that's either not a lefty or just has better overall hitting stats than that Yordan Alvarez, you can go get this Rooker on the market for like 900 stubs right now. Teoscar Hernandez, if you need a pinch hitter against lefties, or if you just absolutely love that slap hitting swing, he can be a stud for you. Royce Lewis, little weird. He's like a pinch hitter, same-handedness pinch hitter, which is kind of a weird niche to have, but you can see against righties, he is pretty filthy at this point. 70 contact right, 92 power right. So he's an absolute stud there. Pete Alonso, who I mentioned, but Giambi's free and arguably better. So I'd probably just go his way. O'Neal Cruz looks really good in the field. Pretty awful with the bat. Berger, super budget beast here. Relatively cheap. Always has a good swing. You're looking at mid-80s power. Not bad at all. Kyle Schwarber, worth a look on a budget. But again, when you can get like Yordan for free, you can get Giambi for free. Just don't really see a point in going out and buying them. Jason Giambi, who I just mentioned. There's this Joey Bats from the XP path that you get relatively early on. He's all right. And then I want to mention Tyler O'Neill real quick. And that's about the guys I would be building on a super low budget, more or less. Starting pitchers, Logan Webb can get the job done. 74 hits, not ideal against a CPU. He's also probably going to throw a little too slow for to use in ranked against players who are honestly probably accustomed to hitting off way faster pitchers than him. So it's not ideal, but you're kind of limited in actual good pitching at this point, and he at least has a cutter that you can work off the sinker and the four seam to get some rollovers on. Yamamoto, can't really go wrong with him. Throws relatively hard, has a nice mix, has a splitter that you can work in. Really, pitching is going to be hard to come by at this point in the game. Ubaldo Jimenez, I do not have him here for this card. This card isn't terrible, but I more so have him in here because he is an evolution card. You use this one and do some moments, and you will eventually get an 86 diamond Ubaldo Jimenez, who looks a lot better. Doesn't have outlier, but he does look a lot better. Definitely better than everybody else in this rotation at this point. Randy Johnson, you get this card the same way that you get like Giambi and stuff. You just go do like one moment in the Mariners team affinity and you'll get this Randy Johnson, who is by no means a world beater, but he has pretty good through nines other than the walks. And at the end of the day, it's Randy, and he still throws hard. It's not like a Yankees or a Giants Randy Johnson. It's still a Mariners Randy Johnson that throws 100. And then I have Jose Soriano on here, one of the few guys with outlier. They are very stingy at this point in the game about giving out outlier to people, especially on a four seam. You don't see it a lot. I know Live Series Paul Skeens has it. I think a couple of relievers have it. But you will see a couple guys that have outlier sinkers. Jose Soriano, one of those few starters that kind of does. Kind of like a Noah Syndergaard in a way. Bullpen wise, we got Tanner Scott here. I don't love him just through nine wise as a lefty. You know, it's hard to argue with, but his pitch mix is pretty default. It's four seam, slider, circle change. It should be absolutely shut down against the CPU for you guys. against players, he's probably going to get absolutely tanked. Danny C, people who know he was very solid last year. Can't really go wrong with him for, 500, 600 subs. Pretty good shutdown reliever that should fare better online. Only problem is he does throw like 91, so certain people probably will tee off on him. Blake Trinan I have here. I don't love his pitch mix, and also no outlier for him, but when you throw a sinker, cutter, and a four seam, you can't really go wrong with that combo. Eventually, you're going to get some rollovers, some bad contact on it. Joe Kelly, who I already mentioned, you can see, honestly, I think is the first guy I've paralleled because I just spammed him in Diamond Quest constantly. Pretty filthy, honestly. This card, relative to the meta, is better than the Diamond Captain one that we had last year. For sure. He has a pitch that breaks horizontally now in his slider. So it's not like you're pitching a relief pitcher, Walter Johnson. And he also is a guy with outlier. It is on his sinker, which is not necessarily ideal. But at the end of the day, outlier is outlier. Yohan Duran, like I said, it's rare for them to give out outlier, especially on a four seam at this point. He is one of the few guys that have it. So if you're facing an opponent that just can't catch up the outlier, he's going to be your bread and butter. Griffin Jax just kind of has a janky delivery with some pretty good pitches. And his through nines aren't terrible with 86 hits, 76 walks. So a pretty solid card there. Chapman, you already know. Honestly, one of his worst pitch mixes to start the year, as well as he has outlier sinker and not the four seam. So he's not going to be topping out at like 102. You might get lucky and get 101 out of him a couple times. But that's more or less it. This is probably the worst Chapman we've had to start a year. And he's still going to be pretty solid just based on his mound presence, really, and the intimidation factor. Then we got Yimi Garcia, who kind of came into his own last year. You saw him a lot in BR and stuff. And he's going to be the same this year. Four seam, sinker, sweeper, circle change, curveball. Not the best pitch mix in the world, but decent through nines. And he's just got a bunch of pitches, which is kind of hard to come by at this point in the game. And yeah, guys, I think that is a pretty solid starter team. It'll help you, get started. People want to know what to play right now. You can really play whatever you want. You want to play mini seasons, go run it up. You want to play Diamond Quest, go run it up. Conquest isn't a bad option. And if you want to just hop into ranked and kind of rip the band-aid off, you can do that. But that will give you a solid foundation to then go and start grinding some of these other team affinities and start working towards like this Bobby Grich and some other really solid team affinity cards that are going to be key for your team competing with people that go out and get Beltron early and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this was informational for you guys. And if you did enjoy the content, again, I'd urge you to like and subscribe. We'll be back with more content in the future. Till next time. Peace.